Hello all. Till now, what we have done is that we have performed couple of data analysis using bar chart, using this grouped bar chart, what we have learned in the last session using our Seaborn package, right? Again, this is what we have learned till now in this case study. Again, by the way, in context of the life cycle, what we have discussed so far, so we have shed light on this EDA area in the last session. So in this session, the challenge is as simple as that, which is all about, is there any difference, right? Is there any difference between the behavior of the frequent viewers and the not frequent viewers? So as soon as you will see this problem statement, the immediate doubt that you might ask is, okay, can you define both the term, which is my frequent viewers and which is my not frequent viewers, right? So let's say I will consider that particular viewer as a frequent viewer who have bought particular product at least 50 times or more, right? So if anyone has purchased, or if any user has purchased a particular product, or the total number of product at least 50 times or more, right? I will consider that particular user as a frequent viewer. If it is less than 50, I will consider that as a not frequent viewer. Now this is a simple idea that we have to implement on top of the data that we have. So if I say as data dot columns, right, you will notice that I have another very interesting feature, which is a user ID feature, because this feature will tell us that, okay, what are the users which have brought product. So if I will say as data of this feature, right, if I will execute it, these are the various users. Now the moment I will call a value underscore counts just to get the frequency table, as soon as I will execute it, now it says that, okay, this particular user has bought 329 product, whereas this particular user has bought 278 product, right? These are the various product count you will end up getting for each of the user. So if I say as data dot, let's say head of imagine 7, let me execute it. Let me show you some stuff. Okay, so what we have to do is, right, we have to create one more column. Imagine the new column is, let's say, viewer type, right, which could have a value as, let's say, frequent, right, or not frequent. Can you create a column like that? Because as soon as you have this feature, you can perform the analysis with respect to this problem statement, which is all about, is there any difference between the behavior of the frequent viewers and not frequent viewers? So let me show you how you can actually create such a column, right? Okay, so very first, let me access my feature, which is a user ID feature. I will say, can I access a feature which is a user ID feature? As soon as I will press tab, right, now look at this. This is a feature. These are all the values. Now I will say that on top of this, let me apply some function. Okay, let me use a concept of lambda. Don't worry, I will explain you what a lambda is just in a while. So I will say as lambda of user, right, I will assign frequent to each of the user if x of user will be greater than 50, right? Now you might ask is, okay, what is x? So let me store the series in x variable. Let me execute it. Again, if you want to print it, you can say, okay, let me print the x. So this x of user basically means, okay, let me show you that. This x of user basically means that if a user count, right, this x is a series, right? If in this series, right, if each of the user has a count greater than 50, then I will insert a frequent. But if this condition is not true, I will assign not frequent. It means, let me go inside a else block. I will say that not frequent, right? Very, very simple idea. Again, for those of you who are getting confused, with respect to this X of user, you can simply treat it as a dictionary concept. It is just like a key value pair. Let me show you that. Okay, let me show you. The moment I print X, this is what the X is all about, right? If I say that X of, let's say I have saw the user ID as, okay, this one, right? Just copy it, just paste it, just execute it. Look at this. It is saying that with respect to this user ID, the count is 329. So if I will execute this line of code, now you will see that you will end up getting values as not frequent, and somewhere here, right, in the series somewhere here, you will end up getting a value as a frequent. Now let me explain you the idea how actually lambda typically works. Again, by the way, oftentimes this lambda is known as a anonymous function because this function doesn't have any body. That's why it is known as an anonymous function, or it doesn't have any name, right? So the implementation of this code, right, is as simple as that. You can consider this user as a pointer, right? You can consider this user as a pointer to each row of the user ID. You can say on top of each of the row of the user ID, if I will apply this logic, right? The logic is as simple as that. This is the logic. The logic says that if X of user will be greater than 50, where X is a series, right? If in this series, if each of the user of this user ID, if the count will be greater than 50, then I will assign frequent, right? If the condition is false, then I will assign the not frequent. And this is the whole series that you will end up getting. So let me store this series, or let me store this column in, let's say, viewer type feature. I will say as, let me define a feature, imagine as a viewer underscore type. Again, very, very simple idea. So let me just execute this line of code. And if I'm going to say as df.head of imagine3, just execute it. Now you will notice that I have another very interesting feature, which is a viewer type feature. So if I say that data of viewer type dot unique, just to cross check things, look at this. It has two unique entries as not frequent and frequent, just because of the code what we have written. Very, very simple code. Again, for those of you who are getting confused, please do let us know via Q&A. Again, by the way, regarding this problem, right, if I can come up with a data like that, because the problem itself is all about, is there any difference between frequent viewers and not frequent viewers? Let's say this is the stats, right, for my frequent viewers, and this is the stats for my not frequent viewers. So this stat says that, okay, for a score 5, right, it seems that 60% of the total frequent viewers have opted for score 5, whereas 21% of the frequent viewers have opted for score 4, right? So this is a score distribution for the frequent viewers. For not frequent viewers, approximately 63% have opted for score 5, right? 14% have opted for score 4. Again, as soon as you will see this data, right, you can make a very, very meaningful insight like, okay, the distribution of the rating among frequent is very, very similar to the not frequent viewers. But you can say that frequent viewers give less 5-star and less 1-star review as well. Again, as soon as you have such data, you can easily plot it on top of bar, pie, tons of plot you have. So let me show you how you can actually achieve such type of data. Let me show you that. So very first, let me create two data frame, one for frequent viewers and one for not frequent viewers. I can say that data of viewer type, right, will be equals to, let's say, this not frequent. Let me paste it. If I will execute it, this is what the filter is. You can treat this as a filter, right? I will treat this as a filter. If I will mention, or if I will pass this filter inside my data frame, if I will execute it, this is the data frame for my not frequent viewers. So let me store it in not underscore frequent underscore df, right? So let me copy the whole code. Let me paste it. This time turn goes for my frequent viewers, I can say that, okay, the turn goes for my frequent viewers. Let me just execute this line of code again. So if I say that frequent underscore df, let me access the score feature, right? I will say score, just execute it. These are the various score values. If I will call the value counts just to get the frequency values, if I will execute it, this is what you will end up getting, right? Again, by the way, if you need a bar chart, right, you can say just call a plot function, right, over there, right? If I will execute it, you will end up getting a default line chart. If I can say as kind, let's say kind will be nothing but a bar plot, just execute it. This is a fancy bar plot, or you can say this is one of the very simple bar plot. Again, by the way, if you want to convert this states in the form of percentage, you can say, okay, just divide each of the value to the length of the frequent underscore df that we have. Just execute it. If you want to convert this into percentage, just multiply it by 100. Very, very simple idea. Similarly, if you want to do it for the not frequent viewers, you can just copy whole code, just paste over here, just mention not underscore frequent df, and over here you can also mention it. Just execute it and you will end up getting such a stuff. Again, by the way, if you want a bar plot for the not frequent viewers, you can just mention here a not frequent. Just execute it and this is the stuff what you want. Again, by the way, if I will say as data dot columns, right? These are the various columns we have. Now let me consider one of the very important feature, which is a text feature. If I say as data of this text feature, right? These are the various text values. Okay, instead of this, let me say as data of this, right? The first feature, let's say, okay, user ID, right? Let me copy this. Let me just paste here, right? Let me separate it and let me enclose all the thing. If I will execute it, now it says that this user ID has posted this text. Again, by the way, just to make things more interactive, let me consider the product ID as well. And let me just paste over here. Let me just execute it. Now it says that this user ID for this product ID has shared this feedback. Similarly, this user ID for this product ID has shared this feedback. So if I can compute the total words, or if I can compute the length of the feedback which is uploaded by each of the user, if I can compute that, our task is done. It means that at the end of the day, what I need one more interesting feature, which is text length, right? Let's say for this text feature, imagine some length, let's say 100 words, right? For this, let's say the text length is, let's say 110, and so on and so forth. So as soon as I have all these values, I can come up with a distribution of this feature for my frequent users and for my not frequent users if you are interested. Because as soon as I have the distribution for my frequent users, I can come up with analysis that whether my frequent users speaks a lot or whether they are verbose or not, right? Now at the end of the day, what you need is you need all these numerical values. Again, by the way, there are tens of plot that you can think of. One of the very important plot that you can actually think of is something known as my box plot, because you will see that this is a box plot. Again, by the way, for those of you who don't know basics about box plot, so let me give you an idea what a box plot is in a nutshell, right? Let me explain you. So in a nutshell, box plot basically gives us, this is a 25th percentile value, right? This is a median. Oftentimes it is known as a 50th percentile value. This is my 75th percentile value, right? And this is nothing but my whiskers. So box plot basically gives us 25th percentile. Don't worry, I will explain you in a while what a percentile is. Don't worry about that. In a nutshell, it returns us the 25th percentile value, my median value, my 75th percentile value, and the whiskers. Now whiskers may be defined differently in different tools and packages. For some package, right? For some packages, this lower whisker could be 1 percentile value. and this upper whisker could be 99 percentile value. For some package, it could be my minimum value. For some package, this upper whisker, right, it could be some maximum value. So it depends upon the package you are using. But in general, these three metrics are fixed. Now let me explain you what a percentile is in a layman way. So given a bunch of numbers, let's say 2, 4, 6, 9, 14, 16, so on so forth till 100. Imagine I have total 100 observations. And let's say somewhere here, right, I have a 25th percentile value, right, 25th percentile value, and let's say the value is 31. It means that 25% of data point, right, 25% of data point from the above array, they are less than my 31 value. Or you can say that 75% of data points, right, they are greater than this 31 value. This is what in a nutshell a percentile is all about. So very first I need a feature which is a text length, right? So okay, if I'm going to say data of a feature which is a text feature, right? Let me access data of 0th index, right? This is the feedback. Now I have to compute the total words that I have. So very first, if I'm going to call a split function, right? Because this is a string, right? Okay. So this whole, right? This is a string. If I can convert this string into list, because list has a default function which is a len function, which return the total element you have. Again, by the way, for those of you who are getting confused, let me tell you. So just copy the code, right? If I say that, what about the type of the above data structure? It says that this is a string, right? If I will execute this line of code, now you will notice that this is actually a list. Oops, you will end up getting a value error. Okay, it says that you have an empty separator. Okay, my bad. We have to mention, okay, considering what separator you are trying to split the string you have, right? I'm going to say, okay, I will split the string considering space as a separator. If I will execute this line of code, this is the list. Again, by the way, if you want to cross check the type, you can say, okay, can you tell me what about the data structure? Just execute it. Look at this. I'm trying to convert from string to list. And on top of this, the moment I call the len function, now it says that above text has total 49 words. So let me apply this logic for each of the rows so that I will end up getting the text length feature. So why not define a function? Because this code is iterative, right, for each of the row. So defining a function makes much more sense here. I can say as define calculate underscore length, right? Just mention the text, whatever text you have. I can say as whatever text I have, just call a split and just mention separator and just call the len function so that you will end up getting the length of the whole text and just return it. Very, very simple code. Now I am going to say as just access the text feature, right? Just apply the function, right? Just apply the function and the function name is calculate underscore length. Just execute it. Now let me store all the values, let's say in text underscore length. Now let me just execute this line of code. So if I say as, okay, now look at this. We have two entries, right? As a not frequent and a frequent. Now I need both data frames for frequent user and for not frequent users. So let me just copy the code, what I have shown you, and okay, let me just paste over here. And this time let me store it in a not underscore frequent data. It is all about frequent underscore data. Just execute this line of code. If I say that, okay, what exactly my not underscore frequent data is all about, just execute it and you will see that this is the whole data frame which have a feature as a text length, right? This is an important feature. Again, if you need a box plot like that, now if you will see that this is a whole figure, right? You can treat this as a whole figure. In this whole figure, right, I have two axes. This is a axis 1, this is axis 2. You can say as it has a dimension of 1, 2 because it has one row and two column, right? For this axis 1, the index is 1. For this axis 2, the index will be 2, right? So if you want to access this axis 1, it will be nothing but 1, 2, 1, or you can also say as 1, 2, 1. Similarly, for this axis 2, if you want to access it, you can say as 1, 2, 2. This is a simple idea. Again, if you want to generate such a box plot, this is a simple idea what you have to implement. Now, let me write the simple code. So very first, I have to define a figure. I can say as plt.figure. Let me store it in a figure object. It means that, right, now I have this complete box. Now, in this box, I have to define two axes. I can say that in this figure, let me very first add a first subplot. So I can say as fig.add underscore subplot. Its index will be, or you can say if you want to access the first axis, its indexes will be 1, 2, 1. Let me store it in a axis 1. Right now, if you want for axis 2, you can say as it will be nothing but my 2, or you can say 1, 2, 2. Now on top of this axis 1, I can map the box plot, right? But for the frequent users. So first and foremost, I have to access our text length feature. So just copy the whole code, just paste over here, but this time it will be my not underscore frequent underscore data. So if I will execute this line of code, okay, very first let me say as this will be my axis 2. Let me again execute it. Now you will observe that this is a box plot, right? This first one is a box plot for the frequent users. The second one is for the not frequent users. Again, by the way, if you want to make it more interactive, you can set some X label, some Y label, some X limit, Y limit, and things like that. I can say as axis 1 dot set. Let me just press tab over here. If I say set underscore, if I say X, right? And if I, okay, this is the X label. Let me set the X label as, let's say, frequency of frequent reviewers, or let's say frequent users. It could be anything else. Let me just copy the whole code. Let me paste over here. This time the turn goes for the axis 2. It is all about a not frequent reviewers. Just execute it. Now you will notice that this is a fancy box plot what you have. Again, by the way, if you want to set or if you want to customize a X limit or a Y limit or things like that, you can just access one of the very fancy parameter, which is X limit, or you can say set underscore X limit. Just press tab and these are all the various functions, which is this one. I will say I am going to set the Y limit so that I will end up getting more interesting plot. Again, by the way, the data point that you will end up getting, they are often known as outliers, because these are my extremely high values, and that's what outliers are in a nutshell. So if I'm going to say just set the Y limit from 0 to 600, if I will execute it, and similarly you can do it for the axis 2 as well. Let me do it for the axis 2 as well. Just execute it, and this is a fancy plot what I have shown you just a couple of minutes back. Again, for those of you who have any doubt, please do let us know